A very warm welcome to the new episode of Ink and Insights. This is your host Sumit Somna Samir. This is a Nepal-based podcast, and if you are interested in listening to the thought leaders and Nepali influence from around the world, please subscribe to my channel. I'm extremely pleased to welcome Rohini Rana in my program today. Rohini grew up in India but married and settled in Nepal. She is the author of two books, the Rana Cookbook, Recipes from the Palaces of Nepal, and the Nepal Cookbook. Both of her works are published by Penguin Random House India. Her first book, the Rana Cookbook, was nominated for the International Gourmand Award and was featured second in the list of the 10 best cookbooks in India by the Times of India. But today we are going to be more focused on her second book, which is the Nepal Cookbook, 108 regional recipes. I have a copy of book with me, signed by the author herself. Thank you so much for this copy. And I'm extremely pleased to welcome you in my show. Rohini ji, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Sumit Sharma Samirji. Thank you. I'm very happy and proud to be on your podcast, and it's a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me begin by asking, why did you think a need for writing the Nepal Cookbook, 108 regional recipes?
Okay. I hadn't really thought about it or pondered about it. It just happened to be because after I finished writing the Rana Cookbook, I was blessed enough to get one of the best publishing houses, the Penguin Random House, who was going to print my book and publish it. And I was all ready with it, sent it to the publishers, waiting for it to come out. And then, of course, COVID happened. So because of COVID, it went into an incubation period of about 10 months. The publisher wrote to me as saying that we are waiting for the world to get normal again. Right. So can you imagine what a writer feels with her book, which she's worked on or slogged on for years, just, all complete, printed, and it's not being published. So this was a very difficult, trying time, as it is. COVID was a difficult time for the whole world. So this was even more that the first time as a writer I had put in my life's efforts, my passion, everything into this book, and it's not coming out. It's just lying. It's languishing at the publishers. So while waiting for this book to be published, I got the idea of why not do something else. And my husband has always been a great support. And he said, yeah, why don't you do something else? So the idea of the Nepal Cookbook germinated then. And slowly, while I was waiting for my second book to come out, I started working on it then. So that is how it happened.
Nice. And were you always interested in food as such?
I think so. I think I was born a foodie. I was a nice plump child and I loved food. I grew up in a family that loved gourmandizing. I mean, they were, great fans of the culinary arts and reveled in gourmet cuisine themselves, loved eating, loved feeding people. So I've grown up in that culture, let's say. My family was very, very fond of food.
Yeah. As far as I understand, you grew up in India and a lot of time you spent there before getting married and finally settling in Nepal. So what was the atmosphere like when you were growing up at that point of time?
Okay, so I'm born in India and I was born in India in Agra. I grew up in the very pretty hill station of Nainital. Right. Which is now in Uttarakhand, then UP. And my parents, I was the youngest of 6 siblings. So it was quite very loved. I had an idyllic childhood, let's say, in Nainital. I went to school in St. Mary's Convent there. And my parents were one of the first, I think, aristocracies of India to turn one of their old palaces into a hotel.
Right.
So in Nainital, what was our summer palace, my parents turned into a 20-room hotel in 1961. So being a hotel, you're in the entertainment line, you're in the hospitality line. And we had, Indian chefs and continental chefs cooking My mother personally, she had managers, of course, but she personally looked after the running of the hotel herself. So me being the youngest, I used to be just like her little tail going everywhere behind her. So I would hear her giving orders to the cooks and chefs, discussing menus. She would be walking around the dining room, asking people how the food was, and getting their
Right.
comments. So I grew up in that atmosphere. Like
Right.
we were a big family, so when we sat at lunchtime, we would be discussing what we were going to eat for dinner and who was going to cook it. So that is the atmosphere that I grew up in. I never had any formal training as such. I haven't trained as a chef or taken any culinary courses, but
Right.
I grew up in a very, very foodie environment, let's say.
Right, right. So I was going through this book, and in the beginning of the book itself, you have printed a verse written by a poet, Gyan Dil Das, which talks
Yes.
about food menu of King Prithviraj Shah. Can you please elaborate on that?
Sure. Can I quote it in Nepali and then give the
Yeah,
translation in English? Because I think that will, resonate more with the Nepali people as well.
sure.
So this is a poem concerning food and the menu and the dishes prepared for King Prithvi Naran Shah.
Yeah.
And he's put it beautifully in prose form. And it says, Nepal ko sin ki luti, Mangrant ko ghile bhuti, Palpa ko liao hing jiro, Rising ko liao piro, Tanahu ko bhat sit, भीरको को दाल सित कंचर कचौरा भरी पूर्व मुआरा गरी महाराज को जिनार बनाओ है. So this is the prose that he has
Right,
written, and I got a historian and anthropology professor to translate it for me in English,
right.
Poonam Rajalakshmi Rana. So she has put it very well that all the states, all the areas of Nepal, the poet has picked out what is famous from each area, right? So it is like from Nepal, which is basically okay. Nepal, you get the sinki, which is the fermented radish, and then from Mangranth you get the ghee, which is the butter,
Right.
and you fry it in that butter. From Palpa you get the hing and the jeera. Hing
Okay.
is asafoetida, jeera is cumin. Then Rising ko liao piro. So you get the chilies from Rising,
Right.
and the rice tanau ko bhat sit. So the rice should be from tanau, and birko
Right.
ko dal sit. So the pulses or the lentils, the dal should be from birkot, and serve it in a golden bowl and platter.
Wow.
Uh, Turn towards the east. In our Hindu Dharam, we had all these ideologies where if you faced a certain side, it would be more auspicious. So he's asking
Yes.
the cooks to prepare the meal, turning towards the east, place it on a 8 lotus petaled chowki, and serve to the king, and make this meal for King Prithvi Naran Shah. So I
Right.
just loved the prose. One of our journalists, Janak Raj Sapkota, had sent it to me after I published my first book. So I was so
Right.
thrilled. I said, "This is really resonates with my book, and I must put it in somewhere."
Well, absolutely. I mean, it talks about, what kind of foods are good and belongs to which place, and that kind of
Yes,
brought together.
right.
It's very interesting and fascinating too. You have put it in the beginning of the books itself, and that's very interesting. And, the title of the book is also the Nepal Cookbook 108 Regional Recipes. What is this 108 regional recipes?
Okay, so 108. We being Hindus in Nepal, formally it was a Hindu kingdom before it became a federal republic, and so I think the 108 is a very auspicious number, and it resonates not with just the number. It is a combination of Vedic cosmology. It has a little bit of astronomy, neurology, numerology, mathematics, science, and Ayurveda. So, in each of these sciences and in the Hindu religion, there are 108 Vedas in the Upanishads. There are 108 beads in the mala that we say our prayers on,
Chant. Yeah.
right, that we're chanting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are 108 yoga asanas, which are supposed to activate the 108 nerves or the nadis, which lead to the heart chakra.
Right.
And that is giving you well-being. Then going on with the 108 number, there are between the planets, the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon. The length and the distance between each planet is the diameter. Is it comes up to the 108 number again. So
Very
there are
interesting.
so many reasons why 108 is supposed to be a very auspicious number. So for no
Right.
other reason except for the number being auspicious, I thought it'll be interesting to put in 108 regional recipes. So
Right.
that's the main
Right.
reason behind it. I thought it
Does it
would.
also, in a way, imply that the food intake that we are having in Nepali society or in Nepal is enriched and is very healthy, and that sort of activate all the the components within the body?
Absolutely, absolutely. The idea behind that number 108 is there because
Yeah.
it is, first of all, it's an auspicious number, and secondly, it is denoting your well-being, your mental plus physical well-being. Your
Right.
spiritual side is also activated, your physical side is activated with that number. So I
Right.
just thought it'll be an interesting number and an auspicious number to have in the book.
And you have also mentioned about Asta Mangal as I went through the pages. What is its relevance?
Okay, Ashtamangal are just lucky charms. They're just auspicious, lucky symbols which are common to three of the world's biggest religions, let's say Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. And they are just lucky charms which adorn the gates and the entrances of temples, of palaces, of homes. They
Right.
again signify your existence because in their 8 variations they are denoting something auspicious, something lucky. Like the umbrella is uh, let's say protecting you from your environment, from evil. The shape lotus is showing that it grows in dirt but it rises above, and that's the spiritual side of you. Then we have the conch shell, which is the sound resonates and brings in again auspicious energy. So,
Right.
like these, there are 8 different symbols which are denoting 8 different aspects, which are all spiritual and all, I think, hoping to lead one if one follows or listens. If you follow it and use these symbols, they're all helping you to have a very well balanced life, basically.
Right. And as far as I understand, in Nepal, we have range of food habits. Can you please elaborate some of the foods of various ethnic groups that's very popular in Nepal?
Okay, the food that is popular, when you talk about Nepalese cuisine, it's, I think the main thing that comes to mind is dal bhat tarkari,
Right.
and if you're lucky, masu. So dal bhat tarkari masu is, I think, really a well balanced, very nutritious diet.
Right.
In Nepal, we go into a lot into smoking, fermenting, drying out the vegetables, the meat, because in some areas, everything is the vegetables and the meat is not available throughout the year. In the mountainous region, it snows for nearly 6 months, so you can't get every. So preserve food. We didn't have fridges and refrigerators then, so we would be preserving the food by going into these activities of drying, smoking, and fermenting. And today's
Right.
world, we suddenly discover from the Western world that fermented food is supposed to be very healthy for gut health. So we just think that in our Nepali way of life, we'd already perfected all those techniques and we were already using them. So that is very
Absolutely.
interesting. So saying more about Nepali food again, it is being how nutritious it is. We have a combination of the carbohydrates, which is rice or the grains we eat, which is millet, wheat.
Right.
Then we have dal, which is lentils. Lentils is again protein. So if you're a vegetarian, you're getting your share of proteins from the lentils. If you're lucky, you're adding on the meat for more protein. And then
Right.
we always in Nepal have seasonal green vegetables. A green
True.
vegetable, a saag, has to be part of the meal. So you're getting all
Absolutely.
your fiber from there, and you're
Yeah.
adding to the gut health with all the achars and the sinki and all the tama and all these fermented foods that we are eating. So it's an
Right.
extremely well balanced diet.
Right, right. So, are there any specific foods that's available only in Nepal and is not found elsewhere? Did you felt while writing a book? Did you come across any food item that's specifically, available in Nepal only?
Well, I think the fermented and the dried food is one main food which is not, at least in Southeast Asia, you might get it in some other countries, but not in the
Mm,
West, definitely. The fermented gundruk and the tama, all these, the fermented spinach and uh, the meat, even the sukuti, the dried and smoked meat, that is really not available in
right.
the other part of the world. And I think our fiery pickles, which we eat so much of, achars which have to be is a must in every meal. I don't
True.
see the rest of the world, eating. Okay, we might have it in Southeast Asia, but definitely not in the West.
Right, right. Do you feel these days that that we are kind of going away from our regular food habits and getting used to the diets that's more of the Western kind of recommended foods, and how much would that help to our health?
Uh,
What's your suggestion?
Today's world, unfortunately, we are being rampantly overtaken by the fast food culture, which is definitely not one of the healthiest. And that all is coming from the difference in the way of life.
Right.
Our way of life was very much more languishing in the old days, very much more relaxed. The women's looked after the home and the hearth, and they were cooking and preparing meals for the family. So they were the kitchen used to be the centrifugal force of the whole home, and the woman basically was the centrifugal force, cooking up these healthy meals to keep her family mentally and physically healthy. Now, what's happened in today's world? The women are going out to work, so they
Yeah.
don't have the time or energy to come home and prepare an elaborate meal of dal bhat tarkari.
Hmm.
I have my own take on why that's why the thakali and other kitchens are doing so well, the restaurants are doing so well, because the youngsters don't have time to, the husband and wife are both working, they have young children. So where are they going to have the time? Might be on a holiday that they'll prepare a dal bhat meal. So that's why they're going to these thakali kitchens and the Nevari food and, to get the taste of their own ethnic cuisine, which
Right.
unfortunately is not being cooked at home. It's so much
Right.
easier to order a pizza on Food Mandu, or 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 a burger or something like that, or have some chow mein or ramen or something like that. So of course the delicious packet of YY. So because of this culture and the fast pace of life, I think we are
Right.
slowly moving away from our ethnic cuisine.
Right, right. I think these days I also kind of look into the sort of the experts who are providing a lot of recommendation and diets and food and all those things, and people are getting more conscious of their health as well. I mean, this kind of balance they wanted to bring it back, and then they sort of not only relying on the packaged food. So I think people are trying to see that there's a lot of positive things if at all they rely on the kind of foods that we used to have in the past. Hopefully that the time will come that they will find a nice calibration wherein they could enjoy food as well as they could enjoy their
I
work
hope
and
so.
the
I hope
nature of
so, because
work.
that will be so much more healthy than what we're eating on a normal
Yeah.
basis today in every house. Yes.
Yeah, and what is various foods found in Nepali society? Tell us about our society itself.
Okay, Nepali society, that's why this book is so resonant with what I find so. I mean, the culture we have, the social fabric, the culture is so magnificent, is such a kaleidoscope. Our ethnic societies, I've just picked out 10, because no way could I have written about all of them. I mean, they are so divergent. So while my husband was in the army, and on his postings, he would be posted all over Nepal. And I tried my best to follow him wherever I can. And that is where I came in contact with the different ethnic communities. not only just their cuisine. The cuisine was, of course, my interest, but their social fabric, the different cultures, the different feasts they would be having during the festivals. So it is just so marvelous that we've got this rich culture.
Right.
And of course, my passion being food, I thought this had to be documented, because so many of the practices are dying out now, so it is becoming a lost art in some of the culinary recipes that I was researching into, which is very few people are having the time and the energy to cook them now. So
Right.
that was my research and the documentation. While doing the food, I just found the fabric, the jewelry, everything so beautiful and exotic that I thought, let me at least one page put in a little bit of fabric and jewelry. I put it as a backdrop for some of the food. So I've tried to encase the whole culture. It's very, very difficult. I've just touched the tip of the iceberg. I mean, Nepal
Right.
is so vibrant that one can't really, write it all
Right.
down in that also in a cooking book, so.
Right. And in your own experience, how divergent did you find when you travel through, Himal, Pahad, and Tarai? All these three different locations, we have different food habits and different cultures.
Absolutely, you're so right there, Samirji, because traveling, I mean, when you look at Nepal, a map of Nepal, we have the highest mountains in the world, 8 of the
Yeah.
highest peaks. And then from the hilly region, you go down into the steaming temples, the forests of the Tarai, right?
Yeah.
So what I have done for the readers, let's say to put the reader at ease and make it easier for them, I've laterally divided Nepal into 3 according to topography. Because according to topography, the climate is the same in those regions. So the high mountainous regions, they have the
Right.
same climate and they have the same grains, and the animals found, the same vegetables growing in that region. So
Right.
in the high mountainous area are 2 societies, which are ethnic societies, which are the Thakalis and the Sherpas that inhabit that region. So I've taken 2 of those societies to showcase their culture and their cuisine. And then we come down into the lower mountainous area, which is the hilly area, comprising mid Nepal. And they start with, from the west, let's say we start with the Thakuris, the Bauns, Chetris, Tamangs, Gurungs, Magars. Coming to Kathmandu Mandala is the Nevars. And going
Yeah.
east, it is the Rais and Limbus. So they are the ones that inhabit the whole of the midsection of Nepal. And
Right.
coming further south, you in the Tarai area, we have the Tharus, the Madesis, the Bhojpuris, and the Mithila, communities. So basically, that's how I've divided Nepal, and I've tried to showcase the ethnic culture and the cuisines because of the topography and the climate being the same.
Right. The couple of days back, I was listening to the award-winning chef Jos Andreas. He's
Yes.
Spanish American. He was telling that we receive love in the form of food. And do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel the way to the heart is through the stomach, definitely. I totally believe in that. And I think, food is just not like a basic meal where you quench your hunger and you quench your thirst, and that is it. Today's world, I mean, even in the days of war, in the old Maharajas' families, and even in our kings' families, I mean, the way you see this poet describing how the king's meal should be cooked and prepared, I mean, they had taken it to a different level. It was more like an art.
Absolutely.
And I think a beautifully prepared meal or a menu should be appealing to all your 5 senses, all your 6 senses, the sight first, it should be presented so beautifully that the color combination, the different types of cuisine, it should look good, so
Yeah.
your eyes are pleased. And then if it smells good, your olfactory senses are also heightened. And then, of course, the ears, the sound of sizzling and the tadkas and, the jhanni and all that, So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes your taste buds start working, that, okay, I'm going to get some really good food now. So your smell, your eyes, your ears, everything is working. And finally, then you taste it, your taste buds are
Yeah.
also heightened when you're tasting the food. And I think that goes into your mental state is raised because you're in a state of well-being because you're being fed a really good meal, and then that goes down to the soul. So it's like if food be the this thing of love play on, sort of, if music be the food of love play on. So I feel if food is the music of love, we should also be keep cooking on and eating on. So
Absolutely, absolutely, and the kind of importance that we give to the food is immense. I guess our culture is primarily symbolic, and there's a whole, the goddess herself that we sort of created for the food, Mata Annapurna, and the
Annapurna, yes,
yeah, and the respect that we give to the food before we take it, we bow in front of it, and then thank
absolutely.
God for blessing with the food, and we sort of share that food with some of the other living entities as well, and that tells and talks about the culture and the importance that we give to food. Unfortunately, it's the importance is fading away, and hopefully with the new Rhinosa, people would be able to sort of come back and realize the importance to the entire well-being of the society and well-being of the health itself of the individual that's related with the food. What's your new project, Rohini ji, if I may ask? Have you already started working on that?
I don't know. It's still in a very incumbent state. I don't know. It's just an idea because my husband's always pushing me and saying, "Oh, how can you not do a trilogy? You've done two. You have to do. It'll be incomplete if you don't do a trilogy." So I just, because I'm so fond of this, this area,
Right.
I have such interest in it. So I thought I used to keep, imagining and creating my own recipes with my background of, let's say, Indian and Nepali cooking. And
Yeah.
thanks to my husband and him being in the army, I've had the fortune of having traveled around quite a few countries. So I've always imbibed in their culture also, So from Southeast Asia to Europe to America to Africa, Australia, So wherever I went, I bought a book about the local cuisine. I just because of my passion being cooking.
Right.
So I'm just thinking, let's see if I do a fusion cookbook. I've just started working on it, and
Interesting.
it's just an
Interesting.
idea. It's just
Yeah.
I'm just working on it. Let's see if it happens,
Right.
because sometimes you feel like how much of cooking to do also, so it's not easy to produce a whole book. It's fun to
Right.
cook a meal and feed it to friends and relatives, and everyone says, "Oh, that was really tasty." But when you go into the whole process of it, you have to
Right.
get the recipe pat. The measurements have to be exactly right, and then you go into the next stage. First, you do the research on it, then you document it. You have to keep trying out each recipe a couple of times to get it exactly right and the measurements right, and then the photography. So the photography
Okay.
is not an easy aspect as well, because you need to get the background right, you need the plates right in which you're going to be serving it, and the whole mood has to be right to get it, So it's not an easy job. And
Yeah.
I've just gone to 2 years of finishing my second book. So let's see. I'm thinking I might work on it, I might not. But I've just started. I've just started just putting down recipes on my laptop, and let's see if something happens with it.
Right, right. We wish you good luck. And before I wrap up, my final question to you would be, since you come from, you've grown up in India, you've settled in Nepal, you understand the food habits and culture of both the countries, both the society. What similarities and the differences have you found in terms of food habits? I mean, it's a very generic question. It could be a very long answer to it, but some of the, uh,
I'll
you
cut
know,
it down. Yes, I'll
yeah,
cut it
yeah.
down because the similarities between Indian and Nepali cooking are basically we use most of the spices we use are similar.
Okay.
The the meat, the vegetables, the spices. Now, some things are indigenous to Nepal and some things are to India. Nowadays, with the ease of transport, that is also not a big deal. We are getting fruits from Thailand to China to India to everything here, and the vegetables also. So. Basically, the meat and the vegetables are the same. The spices are the same. Those are the similarities. Let's say. Again, similar is that we both the countries due to a lot of curries, We have dry preparations for meat and vegetables, curries for meat and vegetables. We cook rice in the same way. We cook the lentils. The difference is that I feel, having grown up in India and then got married here in Nepal, and the everyday food. I'm not talking about food that is cooked
Sure.
for festivities, for festivals, and for parties. For
Sure.
everyday food, Indian food is very much heavier, I think, than
Hmm.
Nepali food. They put in or use a lot of more oil and ghee and more spices. I feel to some extent the taste of the meat and vegetables is a little lost because they douse it with a lot of spices and ghee and tel. But while in Nepal, most of our cooking is very light. It's very stir fried. In fact, moving away from the Ranas to the different ethnic communities, I encountered that even more. That it was
Right.
so much lighter. We use a lot of stir fried, whether it's for the meat or for the vegetables. Just a few of the spices are used, not too much of it. So the taste of the meat and vegetables is still very much there. And because we
Right.
are very lucky to not be using so many cold storages for our vegetables, they taste better. Being at a higher altitude, that might be one of the reasons. But
Yeah.
our vegetables taste better. I feel taste better in the meaning you get the taste of the vegetable because the spice is
Yeah.
less and the
Yeah.
oil is less. Again, another difference is two of our spices which we use a lot more and is not used so much in India is timur and jimmu.
Mm,
Timur is
okay.
Sichuan pepper and
Yeah.
jimbu is a mountain allium. Is like dried chives. So those two herbs are used a lot more here in our cooking. We use a
Yeah.
lot more of sesame seeds also, which is not so much in India. They use it, but not to that extent. Like we will temper everything with fenugreek seeds here, while in India it's all tempered with cumin seeds. So these are slight differences, just a little nuances, which make the subtle difference between both the cuisines, basically.
Right. 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 With that note, Rohini ma'am, thank you so much for your time. It's really honor to have you on my show, and we look forward for your next book as well. And we keep talking about the recipes that you bring it in front of the entire world, telling that we also had a Nepali cookbook with us to showcase to the world outside. Thank you so much for your time once again.
Thank you so much, Sumitji. It was so nice being on your show. And I just wanted to say that my book is available in most of the bookstores here in Nepal, being Ekta, Mandala, Vajra. And, so if people want to delve into Nepali cuisine, it'll be very easy for them to procure it. And thank you again for having me on my show so I can talk about my passion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.